This week, we have brought in an expert, a doctor in HR. Not her words, my words. We have Dr. Tiffany Slater. She is the founder and CEO of HR TailorMade. I was interested because I hear this issue coming up so often of we're getting larger. What do we do about HR? And so many issues and problems sort of when you pull that thread, surprise people. Dr. Tiffany, thank you for joining us. I have a bunch of questions, but first, in your own words, what does HR TailorMade do?
Well, thank you for having me, George, and I'm excited to talk to you. We are fractional HR department for nonprofit organizations, and we are a virtual team. We service clients across the United States, and we love working with nonprofits because we know that our nonprofit partners love what they do, and we love what we do.
I think this is, so valuable because it's easy when you're focused on like mission first, working out there that like the HR can just sort of get lost along the way. I founded Whole Whale over a decade ago, and I grew from one human to now we had, 28 to 30 people. I've noticed along the way that there are these like break points where I just like, if I can divide the number by 3 in terms of the number of employees, something is about to break along the way. And I'm just like wondering, because you have over 20 years experience in this field, like why does everything break like at like 3, 6, 9, 12, 21? Like what's going on?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because it feels like for me, every 5 is the
Okay.
number, but 3 or 5 is not that much different, right? But essentially, we are adding 3 to 5 more personalities, and everybody brings with them their own set of experiences and needs and questions and curiosities. So I think that is one of the reasons why from an HR perspective, we have to kind of make adjustments or treat do things just a little differently or put a little more effort into explaining things. That's what I think it is. It's just the addition of people and personalities that I think makes things a little more challenging.
And then that these like trip points of the more people you have, the more connections, frankly, right?
Yeah.
It's a network problem, right? It's not plus one, it's actually times the number of people that people can talk to. And so things like, oh, where's the template for this? Where's access to this? We all know, it's the
Yes.
fact that you
Yes.
can order one pizza to feed everybody, and then one pizza doesn't feed everybody.
It does not. It does not. So we do have to be more intentional as we grow because we know that there are going to be people who are coming into our culture who are not familiar with us. And maybe we are growing from a team who's been with us for many, many years. Well, they know where that template is. They probably put it there. But the new person will not know it through osmosis. We have to put some things in place to ensure that people that join us are familiar, become familiar with those things that are second nature to us. So we need to make sure that they have access to that information sooner rather than later, and we need to make it easy for them.
I like that you talk about that new person. It is far more common actually for this rising generation to expect to have, depending on the survey, 17 different jobs over the course of their career. And that means a lot of onboarding, a lot of, hey, welcome to this company. When I started my company, I remember it was all in the same office. And it'd be like, yeah, just throw that person in. They'll figure it out. Here's an email address. You talk to, there's 3 of us. Just figure it out. 5 of us. At a certain point, that broke. And so I'm curious from your perspective, why is onboarding important?
Onboarding is actually known to be a essential piece of retention. So when we ensure that we are providing people with what they need early on in their employment with us, we are essentially setting them up for success sooner rather than later. So for me, the onboarding process is a long process. There are some people who view onboarding as let me get your tax papers completed, let me get your
Mhm.
I-9 done, and we'll do a one day new hire orientation, and that's it. So for me, onboarding is a combination of that, along with the training that ensures that they understands how to do their job and be successful at it. So it can be a long process for people, and it should be, because the more effort we put into ensuring their success at the onset, the longer that they will typically stay with the organization. So that's why it's important. We want to put our best foot forward in the beginning.
What is your favorite onboarding? I won't call it hack, but what is your favorite onboarding tip to bring to teams? Being like, tell you what, you need to do the rainbow surprise. Not a
I
thing.
love
That's mine.
rainbow. I love that. I think there are so many things, right? But I think the one that I would recommend more than anything is being very intentional about how you set the person up for success, and therefore create an outline of all the things that you're going to train them on so that they can do everything that's outlined in their job description. So take the job description and say, okay, this person is supposed to sweep the floor at 12 o'clock every day. What do I need to give them access to and show them how to do so that they can be successful at sweeping the floor every day at 12 o'clock? Do I need to get them a clock? Do I need to show them where the brooms are? How many times do they need to sweep from left to right? Literally put all this in either an SOP, and you list it in a checklist, a training checklist, so that you can show this person this is how you do your job. And here is the standard operating procedure that outlines the steps for you. We're going to go through it together, but this will be a document that you can always refer back to so that you always know how to do this thing the right way. So I always recommend that we create like a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding plan for new team members.
Mm-hmm. That have that sort of milestone 30, 60, 90. There's
Yes,
oftentimes a trial period, like quite literally for benefits, right?
yes,
I also know that, nonprofits tend to be charities on the outside, charities on the inside, and have a hard time,
yes,
frankly, firing people. And
yes.
actually, I'm kind of curious from your perspective, how do you advise folks really take that onboarding period, that trial period, as a period of like, this may not be the place for you to sweep?
Yeah. The interesting thing about the trial period is because we all employ people on an at will basis. So
What
we
does at
really
will basis mean?
at will, thank you for asking. At will means that an individual can resign or be fired for any reason that is not illegal. So you can't fire a person because they're purple. You can't fire a person because they don't have a left foot, right? Those are illegal reasons to fire someone. But if I'm firing that person or letting them go because they're not sweeping the floor from left to right according to the standard operating procedure that I showed them how to use, that is a legal reason to let them go. So I'm saying that to say that, yes, there's a trial period, but we don't necessarily need a trial period, and we don't have to
Hmm.
call it that, right? Um, the law does not require that we have one. So, to answer your question, if a person is not picking up on the way that the work should be performed, if they're not learning at a pace that a normal person would learn, provided that they have any accommodations that they need to be successful, then you can let them go. You can let them know that they were not successful in the position and it's just not a good fit. Overall, one of the questions that I tend to ask people is, if you keep this person on your team, who is picking up the slack?
Oof.
Is it you, founder, owner?
Oh.
Or is it someone else who's working really hard and doing a great job already, and you're therefore punishing them for working for being a good employee? So which one is it?
That might be the most devastating question because it's such a landmine, right? Because the function of asking means you probably should fire. No one should. The answer is zero. I question the premise of your question. You're like, oh no, Jane will get it, and you're like, well, I'm gonna stop you right there.
Right.
Why is there Slack for a job description? And you're like, oh, farts.
Exactly.
Ugh. You almost tricked me on that one. Is it fair? I feel like embedded in my statement was an assumption, and I try to call myself out on it, that charity on the outside, charity on the inside, meaning that you are possibly too slow to fire in the nonprofit sector. You work with both small businesses and nonprofits. Is that an unfair statement?
It is,
Good.
because small businesses do the same thing. Because at the core, we're all human. And when we are running an organization or running our own business or a nonprofit organization, we do it because we want to create something amazing. And we don't take hiring lightly. So when it comes to letting someone go, we're talking about someone who we've developed a relationship with on some level, someone that we've trusted with our business or our foundation or nonprofit. So no, we don't want to let that person go because it took us a minute to make that decision to hire them and to trust us with all that we have created. So it's just not easy for anyone, even an HR person.
What is, in your opinion, I feel like based on our current conversation direction, I know, but what is the number one most difficult conversation to have, aside from the you're fired, I'd say?
Yeah. That's a good question. And even so, your fired conversation is not the most difficult for me. The most difficult conversation for me is to inform a person that they are not doing something correctly or that their behavior is unacceptable and they don't get it. That's the most difficult conversation for me because I know if they don't get it, they're not going to be able to improve it, whether they stay with my organization or not, and they're going to continue to do that thing. That's really frustrating for me because I want people to get it so that they can be successful.
Now, is the manager effectively having those types of conversations, or would a fractional HR be like, hey, I have a whole list of great conversations for you this week?
HR should not be doing that. We should be supporting the manager and coaching managers and leaders through those conversations. There are times when I even sit in on the conversation because it is an emotional thing at times and it's easy to get flustered. So we can sit in on those calls, and if someone has a question or forgets to mention something, we're kind of there to be a support for the employee and for the leader.
You don't have to answer this next question, but I want you to answer this next question.
I'm nervous.
Good. What is the most expensive HR sort of mistake, story, debacle that you sort of tell after hours? What is that thing that you're like, but never forget the rainbow incident? I don't know why I'm picking on rainbows, but what is that big HR mistake story?
So, and this is, it wasn't necessarily a mistake. And I still look back at it and I'm thinking what could I have done differently? And I still don't know the answer to that. So there were two employees, man and a woman, that started dating at work, in the workplace. And things went south. And the woman kept saying that the man was stalking her, harassing her. We had videos, we had it so that the female was never alone, that she would be walked to her car, and she still continued to complain. We offered her another position with equal pay. She didn't want the position, and because we could never prove that this man was doing these things to her. And so because we didn't want to punish either of them, we let things stay the same. we told her, we're giving you an out. The pay is the same, and I think the hours were even better, quite frankly. But she didn't want it, and she continued to complain. We continued to investigate, and we could never catch him doing anything. And of course, she sued. I don't know what the outcome was because it happened after I was gone. I just kept getting pulled back for depositions and things like that. And honestly, to this day, I don't know what I would have done differently.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. People are messy, and the truth is that like wrongful termination suits happen, and they're tough. You look at it and you start like, oh, I'm sure we were on the good side, and it seems to be a lose-lose when they come up, because you're going to lose in litigation or you're going to settle, and the
Yes.
truth is it probably starts with like where we started, which was onboarding and proper HR practices.
Exactly. And the other thing to remember too is lawsuits happen, and we can't stop people from suing us. Even if we did everything right and someone walks away and we think that they're happy, and they may have even quit, and we don't even know that anything, was wrong while they were working with us. They can still sue for any reason, whether it is legitimate or not. And so unfortunately, we live in such a litigious society. And it just puts us in positions that obviously none of us want to be in. So we just have to do our very best to make sure that if a lawsuit does happen, that we are able to show documentation of what we did. And that's the best way forward. Make sure that we're doing all the things the right way, and that we can prove that we did all the things the right way.
Yeah, that there's all manner of knowledge baked into that one guardrail of documentation. I know so little about HR and messed up so many things, but I know that one thing.
Yes.
Document whatever you did. You should document that. Like, oh, we had a conversation on Zoom about it. Didn't happen. It is amazing. You will have a conversation with two different people, and they're like, that never happened. I was like, I was sitting on the meeting.
Yes.
And like, regardless of like if you think that person's lying or not, the human memory is malleable.
Yes.
Stuff just gets deleted, especially when it's unfavorable to your personal story and narrative. Like, I'm a great employee. I would never do that. You're like, oh, why did you do it? I had to sweep up after it. Never happened. And you're like, okay.
Yep.
That is like a therapy session for me. Like, just document it. Alrighty. Before we move into our rapid fire, any wishes, tips that you're like, you should just do, similar to documentation, when in doubt, document. Are there any other adages that you kind of carry to the table for your clients?
Yes. And this is one of the things where I see that a lot of organizations fall short, and it is documenting performance. A lot of organizations fail to do performance reviews, or to even just document performance conversations, good or bad. One, people want to know how they're doing. They want to know how they're doing. Good employees want to know how they're doing it, and they want to know how they can improve. And if they're doing great, those employees a lot of times want to know what they can do better. And so telling people, oh, you're great, you have nothing to worry about. Well, great. But some people want to grow. So give them feedback and create opportunities for people to do better and expand their knowledge. The other thing is, you got to document the performance reviews, and you want to also put an overall rating. Don't just write a narrative. Oh, so-and-so sweeps the floor according to what I said, and they turn in their reports at 12 o'clock as we requested. What we have to remember is that if we are going to court, or if you are in a position where you need to help the person leave, you want to make sure that you can go back to your documentation and say, you see, 3 months ago where I told you that this was unacceptable, and if it happens again, you could be terminated. You want to be able to point back to that language, because that person is going to say, oh, I didn't realize it was this serious.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to them 20 times about coming to work late, but on the 20th time, you still didn't say, if you come to work late again, you're going to be terminated. But you need to be very clear about what the expectation is and what the consequences are if it happens again.
That's certainly a great point. All right. I have more questions, but I'm going to move into our rapid fire round. Please keep your responses, we'll say around 30 seconds. We'll see what happens. But
Okay.
first one here, one tech tool or website that you or your organization has started using in the last year.
FG Funnels, and it is a white label of High Level.
Okay. What is that?
It's a marketing system, CRM. You can do contract. I mean, it's very robust.
Cool. What tech issues are you currently battling with?
Having too much tech.
What is coming in the next year that has you the most excited?
Moving from Monday.com to Smart Suite.
Can you talk about a mistake you made earlier in your career that shapes the way you do things today?
Yes. Early in my career, I saw team employees as wanting to be close to me because they had an ulterior motive. Because I'm HR, they want to know information, and that's the way that I viewed individuals trying to get close to me in the workplace. Now, I just understand that I'm human, they're human, and people crave connection. So I have to be clear with them that, I'm in HR, I just don't talk business. And if they are truly trying to connect for honest reasons, that is not a concern for them.
Do you believe nonprofits can successfully go out of business?
Absolutely. I think that the best way for a nonprofit to go out of business is to ensure that whatever or whomever that they are servicing is actually handed off to someone else so that they can continue to receive those services in lieu of them closing.
If I were to throw you in a hot tub time machine back to when you started the company, we'll say, back when you started the company, what advice would you give yourself?
Be kind to myself. It's not an easy thing. And I would also remind myself that I've done harder things.
What is something you think your organization should stop doing?
We should stop giving away our time.
If you had a magic wand. This podcast brought to you by you giving your time to talk about HR facts. If you had a magic wand to wave across the HR industry, what would it do?
It would erase the way that HR first started and the perception that exists for HR professionals that we are rigid and we are the police of the organization.
How did you get started with this work?
I don't know why I'm stumbling, but it's the only thing I've ever done professionally. I took a human resources class my senior year in college, and I fell in love with it and immediately changed my specialization. And I went and got an HR internship, and that led to my full-time job. And I've done it for over 25 years now.
And I know your parents were entrepreneurs, small business focused. What advice did they give you earlier in life that you either followed or didn't follow?
They told me to go to college. so I did follow it.
That's good. Not like don't start a business, whatever you do. These things are terrible.
They didn't, but I did see how difficult it was for them. And their business was very different because they had full-time jobs. But they also had a lounge or a bar. And I kind of grew up in there, which was really wonderful because I got to see all kinds of people from all different walks of life. And it was a really great experience.
What advice would you give current college grads entering the nonprofit workforce?
Entering the nonprofit workforce, don't look at what your friends are making. Go into this position, go into this job, knowing that you are doing it because it feeds your soul and not because you have a plan for getting rich.
Truth. Very much truth. Final question. How do people find you? How do people help you?
So people find us at hrtailormade.com. And we're also HR TailorMade on all social networks. And how do people help us? People can help us by making referrals to HR TailorMade. We love working with nonprofit organizations across the United States because we believe in the work that they do. Most nonprofits are female led, most nonprofits service women and people of color. So that is where we really, really enjoy supporting our clients.
Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for your work, and good luck.
Thank you.